Anya called my work plumbing. She said my designs were old school and not disruptive. She thought she could steal 5 years of my life and replace me with a visionary suit. But she forgot one thing about architecture. If you remove the foundation, the whole house of cards collapses. At 10:03 a.m., I showed her exactly how disruptive I can be. It's quiet here now, in this small place tucked away on the western edge of Austin. The kind of quiet that lets you hear the rustle of the live oaks outside my window, the distant hum of traffic that's more a sigh than a roar. I've earned this quiet. For a long time, the only sound in my head was a scream, a static-filled shriek of betrayal that deafened me to everything else. It's been almost 2 years since the worst year of my life, since Anya Sharma ripped everything I held dear into a million pieces and then tried to make me believe I was the one holding the hammer. I'm Julian Vance, 38, and I'm a network architect. Or I was. Now I freelance. My office is a corner of this modest 2-bedroom apartment, just enough space for my dual monitors and a surprisingly comfortable ergonomic chair. My salary hovers around $120,000, a comfortable sum, but not one that screams luxury. My car is a 2017 Toyota Camry with 110,000 miles on it, reliable, unflashy, just like I used to be. I like simple things, things that work, things built to last. That was always my philosophy, in my work, in my life, and embarrassingly, in my relationships. I valued stability, efficiency, a sturdy foundation. Turns out, some people prefer to build on sand, as long as it glitters. Anya, I remember the first time I saw her. She was in a whirlwind, a force of nature, all sharp intellect, and even sharper ambition, dressed in a power suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent back then. We met at a startup mixer, both of us with that wide-eyed, slightly manic energy of people trying to make something out of nothing. I was 33, fresh off a successful project, looking for the next big challenge. She was 30, a rising star in investor relations. We clicked, or so I thought. Our shared vision for NexusFlow, the cloud solution startup we co-founded with a couple of others, was electric. She handled the money, the pitch decks, the smooth talking. I built the backbone, the infrastructure, the intricate web of servers and connections that would make it all run. I prided myself on building it robust, custom, from the ground up, prioritizing stability and efficiency above all else. I poured my life into NexusFlow, but I poured my heart into Anya. She was intoxicating. She made me feel seen, like my quiet genius, my meticulous attention to detail, was something truly special, something she admired. Our dates started simple, pizza and late-night coding sessions, then evolved into fancy dinners, trips to Napa. I remember one evening, early on, she admired my vintage mechanical keyboard, saying something like, "Julian, you're so wonderfully analog in a digital world." It's charming. I ate it up. I was so starved for that kind of validation. The red flags, when I look back, were there, subtle as spider silk, threads woven into the fabric of our nascent relationship. She'd casually dismiss my apartment as cozy, but her eyes would linger on the penthouse listings in her financial magazines. She'd praise my ability to optimize every penny at NexusFlow, then sigh about wanting to actually live, not just exist. I remember a dinner with her family, a very old money, East Coast type of family. Her father, a titan of industry, asked what I did. When I explained my role, the complex architecture of cloud networks, his eyes glazed over slightly, and Anya quickly interjected, "He's the wizard behind the curtain, Dad." Brilliant, but a bit humble. I laughed it off then. Humble. I thought she meant grounded. Now I know she meant not rich enough. She started talking more about scaling up our lifestyle. Not just NexusFlow's operations, but ours. Our vacations needed to be more exotic, our apartment more spacious, my car, well, my Camry became a point of gentle ridicule. "Julian, darling," she'd say, tapping her perfectly manicured nail on the dashboard. "This car is almost as old as our first server racks. Don't you think it's time we upgraded?" Her tone was playful, but the message was clear. We were making good money at NexusFlow, but I was always the one advocating for reinvesting profits, for building a larger buffer, for maintaining the integrity of the system. She saw money as a means to an end, status, display, luxury. The pressure mounted as NexusFlow grew. We were poised for a major acquisition, our hard work about to pay off in a big way. This was her moment, she said, her chance to truly shine. But for her, shining meant being seen among the right people, and I, in my sensible button-downs and my unwavering commitment to the intricacies of network packets, was increasingly becoming an accessory she found embarrassing. I remember a particularly brutal night at an investor gala. Anya was in her element, flitting between venture capitalists and tech moguls, a sparkling wine flute always in hand. I was trying to make small talk, but my passion was always the tech, not the schmoozing. Anya brought over a group of her new, influential friends, all sleek suits and designer dresses. "This is Julian," she announced a little too brightly. "He's our original infrastructure guy." The way she said infrastructure guy made it sound like I was the janitor. One of the men, with a sneering kind of charm, asked what I did. I started to explain the custom-built architecture, the fault-tolerant design, the efficiency I'd baked into every layer. Anya cut me off, her hand resting lightly on my arm, but her grip was tight, almost a warning. "He's brilliant at the plumbing, darling. Keeps the lights on. But you know, we're really looking at bringing in some fresh blood, some more visionary leadership, to take NexusFlow to the next level." My stomach clenched. Plumbing. Visionary. The word stung. She smiled at me, a tight, saccharine smile that didn't reach her eyes. I could feel the heat rising in my face. It was social humiliation, pure and simple, delivered with a velvet glove. The kind that makes you question if you're truly out of touch, if your dedication to foundational excellence really is outdated. I'd leave those events feeling small, bewildered, and wondering if I was the problem. She'd apologize later, always with a kiss and a soft touch, saying, "You're just too modest, Julian. They don't understand your genius like I do. But sometimes you have to play the game." And I, idiot that I was, believed her. I wanted to believe her. The shift was subtle at first, then became a tidal wave. NexusFlow was on the cusp of this massive acquisition, the culmination of 5 years of grueling work. But I was being sidelined. Meetings I used to lead, especially regarding system integration, were now being run by Anya, or by some new hires who seemed to appear out of nowhere, all slick presentations and buzzwords. I'd ask Anya about it. "Sweetheart, why wasn't I invited to that infrastructure meeting with the acquiring company's CTO?" She'd turn to me, her eyes wide, a practiced look of concern on her face. "Julian, you've been so stressed lately. I just wanted to take some of the burden off you. Besides, you know how busy you are with the day-to-day. This was more high-level, strategic stuff. Nothing you need to worry your pretty little head about." The patronizing tone, the dismissive hand wave. I felt like I was losing my mind. My work, my baby, NexusFlow, was being discussed, dissected, re-architected, and I was being told to sit down and be a good boy. Then came the bigger cracks. I started noticing odd requests in the system. Access to my most sensitive architectural diagrams was granted to people I didn't recognize. Core network configurations were being tweaked, subtly, but in ways that made my stomach churn. My meticulously crafted, fault-tolerant network was suddenly less robust, more prone to minor glitches. I confronted her. "Anya, who authorized these changes to the core routing? It's introducing unnecessary latency, and it's a security risk." She looked at me as if I'd grown a second head. "Julian, honestly, you're becoming obsessive. It's just a few tweaks for modernization. The acquiring company wants to see us embracing newer, more scalable solutions. Your designs, while brilliant, were perhaps a touch over-engineered for cost efficiency. We can't be sentimental. It's business." My protests grew louder. I argued that cost efficiency at the expense of stability was a recipe for disaster, especially at our scale. She began to gaslight me relentlessly. "You're imagining things, Julian. The system is fine. You're just stressed because of the acquisition. Maybe a little jealous that others are getting credit, too. It's not all about you, you know." She'd make me feel like I was paranoid, insecure, seeing ghosts. I started doubting my own judgment, my own sanity. Was I just a bitter, outdated tech bro? Was my resistance holding NexusFlow back? She made me believe it. The peak of her manipulation came in stages. First, the whispered rumors she engineered about my resistance to change and my difficulty collaborating with new teams. Then, the gradual isolation. My access codes were downgraded, My involvement in high-level strategy meetings ceased. I was still ostensibly the head architect, but it was a title and name only. My emails went unanswered, my concerns dismissed. The final betrayal was a knife in the heart. She called me into her office, just her and I, the day after the acquisition was formally announced to the internal team. My team. The team I had built. She sat behind the gleaming mahogany desk that used to be a shared workspace, her face a mask of practiced regret. She told me the acquiring company had decided to go in a different direction with the technical leadership. My position was being eliminated. My equity, which was significant, was being bought out at a valuation I considered criminally low, but my options were limited. It was either that or a protracted legal battle that would burn through every penny I had. "Julian," she said, her voice soft, almost a purr, "I fought for you. I really did. But they want someone with a more public profile. Someone who can inspire confidence in the investors. You're brilliant, honey, you know that. But you're not exactly a public speaker, are you? And your designs, well, they just felt a little old school to them. You know, stable, but not disruptive." I remember the blood draining from my face. My head felt light. My hands started to tremble. Old school? Not disruptive? My designs were the reason NexusFlow was stable, the reason it could scale seamlessly, the reason it was attractive to an acquirer in the first place. It was like she was erasing my very existence from the company's history. And then, the ultimate gaslight, the cherry on top of the betrayal sundae. "I'm so sorry, Julian. I feel terrible, but you'll be fine. You always land on your feet. You're just a little bit sensitive, aren't you?" Sensitive. I was watching my life's work, my passion, and my entire future being taken from me by the woman I loved, and she called me sensitive. I walked out of that office, out of NexusFlow, a ghost. My things were already boxed, left in the break room like donations. I didn't even bother to pick them up. I just drove and drove until the Austin city lights faded into the endless black of the Texas night, the radio off, my mind a storm of white noise. I felt utterly, completely broken, professionally ruined, emotionally devastated, and worst of all, believing for a terrifying moment that maybe, just maybe, I was the one who was wrong. The next few weeks were a blur of self-pity, cheap whiskey, and dark thoughts. I barely left my apartment. The silence in my small space was deafening. But then, a flicker, a cold, hard spark of something that wasn't self-pity, wasn't despair. It was anger, a deep, righteous, incandescent rage. She called my designs old school, not disruptive. She called me sensitive. She leveraged my architectural diagrams, my intellectual property, to orchestrate a hostile takeover, pushing me out, seizing my equity, and publicly discrediting my technical leadership. And she thought I would just slink away. She made a mistake. She forgot who I was. I was Julian Vance, the guy who built the most robust, custom infrastructure NexusFlow had ever seen. The guy who thought of every contingency, every vulnerability, every possible point of failure. The guy who, when building complex systems, always baked in a failsafe. Or, in this case, a kill switch. I stopped being a victim the day I wiped the dust off my old external hard drives. I was out, but I wasn't disconnected. My skills weren't just about building. They were about seeing patterns, anomalies, vulnerabilities. My first step was to discreetly check NexusFlow's public-facing information. Her upgraded infrastructure was being touted everywhere, but the details were vague. She'd simplified things, cut corners, traded robustness for flash, as I had suspected. I had, years ago, built in a passive monitoring system, a kind of digital tripwire that would notify me if certain critical, core components of the network, ones only I knew how to manage properly, were altered in specific ways. She had either forgotten about it, or simply never knew it existed. The notifications had been piling up. I spent weeks in a cold, calculating fury. I used my deep understanding of NexusFlow's original architecture, combined with what I could glean from public announcements and leaked internal memos, to reverse engineer her upgraded system. I cross-referenced configuration changes, scrutinized public DNS records, analyzed network traffic patterns through open-source tools. My hands, once trembling, now moved with surgical precision over the keyboard. I was a digital forensic archaeologist, excavating the layers of her deceit. The truth revealed itself, not in a single dramatic explosion, but in a gradual, horrifying unfolding. She had systematically stripped out the redundancy, the failsafes, the custom error correction protocols I had built in. She had replaced proprietary, secure, and yes, expensive solutions with cheaper, off-the-shelf alternatives, all in the name of cost efficiency and modernization. Her so-called upgrades were nothing more than a patchwork of vulnerabilities, an illusion of progress built on a crumbling foundation. My old designs, which she had publicly called outdated, were the very blueprint for the fragile house of cards she had constructed. And the biggest insult? She had used my own architectural diagrams, stripped of my annotations and warnings, to sell her cheap knockoff to the investors. The breaking point for me wasn't the initial discovery. It was seeing the sheer depth of her contempt for my work, for me. She didn't just want to push me out. She wanted to erase me. She wanted to take credit for my successful system, then degrade it for profit, and then blame me for any future failures. It was psychological warfare. There was a moment, after I had gathered all the evidence, after I had meticulously documented every change, every vulnerability, every corner she had cut, where I simply sat. The apartment was dark, save for the blue glow of my monitors. The raw data stared back at me, an undeniable testament to her betrayal. I felt a wave of nausea, a profound sadness that settled deep in my bones. I had loved her. I had given her everything. And she had systematically dismantled me. I actually cried, for the first time in years, the kind of quiet, gut-wrenching sobs that leave you hollow. But then, the tears dried. The sadness gave way to a chilling clarity. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about justice. It was about the integrity of the system, the fundamental principles of building something real and lasting. And it was about Anya, who had mistaken my quiet nature for weakness, my trust for naivety. She thought she had won. She thought she had pulled off the perfect heist. I began to plan. I had a secret. Years ago, while building the core network architecture for NexusFlow, during a period of intense paranoia about potential industrial espionage, we were a hot startup, after all. I had implemented a dormant, undetectable logic bomb. It wasn't malicious in its original intent. It was a dead man's switch, a contingency to protect the core intellectual property if the company was ever truly compromised from the inside by an external threat. A kind of digital tripwire that, if certain conditions were met, would activate a series of seemingly random, escalating failures designed to make the system appear to collapse under its own weight, thus destroying any value an enemy could extract. The original conditions for activation were complex, involving multiple security breaches and manual overrides. But over time, as I built more into the system, I also built in a back door to that bomb, a hidden master key that only I knew. I had never intended to use it, not against NexusFlow. But the NexusFlow that Anya was running, the NexusFlow she had corrupted, was no longer the company I built. It was a hollow shell. It was a threat. My plan was precise, surgical. I would activate it at her moment of triumph. I knew from the acquisition announcements that NexusFlow's integration into the larger acquiring company's infrastructure was slated for a massive global rollout. This was Anya's coming out party, her chance to parade her visionary leadership in front of the world. She had scheduled a grand press conference, investors flying in from everywhere, celebrating the seamless integration, the new era of NexusFlow. I calculated the timing down to the second. I wanted maximum impact, maximum humiliation. I wanted it to look like an architectural failure so profound, so inexplicable, that it would annihilate her reputation as a tech leader. The vulnerabilities she had introduced, the cost-cutting measures, these were my ammunition. The logic bomb was designed to exploit those specific weaknesses, making it appear as though her own upgrades were unraveling the system from within. It wouldn't just crash. It would fragment. The day came. I was sitting in my small apartment, the blinds drawn, my heart thumping a cold, steady rhythm against my ribs. On my screen, I watched the live stream of Anya, radiant in a tailored suit, standing on a stage, beaming at the cameras. She was talking about her seamless integration, her innovative vision, how she had modernized NexusFlow's antiquated infrastructure. My blood ran cold, but my fingers were steady. At precisely 10:03 a.m. Central Standard Time, as she was midway through a sentence about unprecedented scalability, I initiated the sequence. It wasn't a sudden explosion. It was far more insidious. My logic bomb began its work, a phantom network collapse. First, it injected subtle, undetectable routing errors into NexusFlow's global network. Not enough to crash it, but enough to misdirect packets, causing micro-latencies that would cascade. Then, it started to selectively drop data packets, small amounts at first, making it seem like random, intermittent outages. Servers would struggle to communicate. Databases would experience sync issues. The system would start to consume its own resources, chasing phantom problems, creating a denial-of-service effect from within. On the live stream, I saw it. Anya faltered. Her smile twitched. Someone off-camera whispered something to her. Her eyes darted to a monitor I couldn't see. Her confident posture stiffened. She tried to regain composure, but it was too late. The internal comms were probably going wild. Within minutes, social media started to explode. Reports of NexusFlow services failing, data being corrupted, customers unable to access their cloud storage. The beauty of the logic bomb was that it was designed to look like organic failure. There would be no clear indication of an attack, no malicious code easily traceable. It was a slow, agonizing implosion, making NexusFlow appear as if the entire system was collapsing under its own weight, a house of cards built on faulty foundations, precisely what Anya had built. The acquisition deal imploded in spectacular fashion. The news reports were brutal. NexusFlow acquisition, catastrophic architectural failure leads to unprecedented data loss. CTO Anya Sharma's modernization blamed for system-wide collapse. Her reputation as a tech leader was annihilated. The unexplained network implosion was deemed a direct consequence of her rushed, profit-driven decisions, her upgrades exposed as the critical vulnerabilities they truly were. The company, my company, was left in ruins. I watched it all unfold from my quiet apartment. There was no joy, no triumphant cheer, only a cold, deep sense of justice. It was bittersweet. I had loved NexusFlow. It was my creation, my child. To see it die was painful, but to see it die because of her greed, and to be the one to orchestrate its controlled demolition to expose her, that was a complex kind of satisfaction. The world outside my window is still quiet. NexusFlow is a cautionary tale now, a footnote in tech history. Anya Sharma vanished from the public eye. Rumors say she's trying to restart in venture capital, but her name is mud in the tech world. Me? I quietly started consulting for rival firms. No big fanfare, no public appearances. My reputation, though damaged by the initial smear, slowly started to rebuild itself through word of mouth. The quiet ones know. The ones who truly understand architecture, who value stability and integrity. They know what I built, and they know what happened. I'm a quiet legend in the cybersecurity underground now, the guy you call when you need something built to truly last, something bulletproof. My healing wasn't immediate. It was a gradual process, like scar tissue forming. But it's solid now. I still live in my modest apartment, still drive my reliable Camry. But I don't feel small anymore. I feel powerful in a way I never did before. Powerful not because of money or status, but because I know who I am, and I know what I'm capable of. I'm dating again. Her name is Emily. She's an artist, vibrant and kind. She laughs at my tech jokes, she admires my focus, and she doesn't care what kind of car I drive or how big my apartment is. She cares about character, about honesty, about the quiet strength she sees in me. We had dinner last night, talked for hours, just easy, genuine conversation. When she touched my hand across the table, there was no calculation in her eyes, just warmth. And in that warmth, in that simple, honest connection, I finally feel free. The static is gone. The silence hums with peace.